Guess what? There's a time for dancing.
Oh.
In my world, it's...
I feel like that would have been like the perfect intro to you breaking into a dance dance. There's a time for dancing.
Yeah. I mean, I think just because we're sitting, that's the only reason I'm not.
That was a very happy clap.
We're happy to be back.
Yeah.
We're back.
Nobody knows we were gone.
We're gone. Okay, yeah, none of this counts.
Well, it always counts.
You know it's going in there, so you just keep going.
Episode 15.
Whoa.
15.
Here we are.
Out of, I guess less than 60.
Out of 66.
Something.
So we're almost a quarter of the way there?
Oh.
Yeah.
Good math.
Yeah.
Yes, good math. Okay.
Probably more than a quarter. Wait.
No, it's less than.
but less than a quarter.
Because you need 4 15s to make 60, and there's 66 books. But some of them are squishing together.
We are.
Yeah.
So we don't
Yeah.
really know the
We don't know how
full
many
amount of
episodes we're going to have.
episodes.
Cool. All right. But this one is episode 15
Yes.
of season 3, where we've been going through the Bible, a book a week, and this is Ecclesiastes.
Yes, it is.
Did I say that right?
You did.
Yeah.
Have you said it wrong before?
I should have checked that.
I've recently been very questioning my pronunciation on things like filet. Is it
Roz?
raw?
Filet mignon.
Filet mignon. That's why. Is because in my head I say
You've ruined
filet
that for
mignon.
me
Yeah.
from day one. I've never been able to say that.
I've never heard that.
Filet mignon. I said that in school all the time. Or malachi.
Yeah.
Malachi.
Anyways, okay, Ecclesiastes. This is our last book of wisdom literature. It's not exactly the most uplifting. The author seems super bitter, discouraged, sarcastic. And I mean, it basically opens with everything is meaningless. So that sets it up really great. You're like, oh, this is going to be a fun read.
Bright, shining ray of sunshine.
Yeah, a little emo. So the main speaker in this book is called the teacher. And so Ecclesiastes, that word comes from a Greek title, which means a speaker to the assembly. And so he's really wrestling with a lot of things and whether life is meaningless, as he says often. And he seems to be frustrated with oppression and corruption and how life doesn't always go the way we hope. So it's very relatable. But in Hebrew tradition, Ecclesiastes is actually read at the Feast of Booths, which is when they spent 7 days celebrating. They built temporary shelters out of branches, basically, to live in for 7 days to remember God took care of them in the wilderness. And it also happened when they had gathered their crops. So families celebrated God's goodness in both wilderness seasons and in harvest seasons. So they read it because this celebration reminded them that life is temporary and empty without God at the center. And so the first chapter introduces the teacher as Kohelet, which is introduced as the son of David, the king of Jerusalem. And that he had acquired great knowledge and that surpassed all before him. So in Hebrew, the word Kohelet means someone who gathered people together, and in this case, to learn. So it's often translated as teacher or preacher, depending on what translation you have. So even though it's technically anonymous, internal evidence and Jewish tradition place the teacher as Solomon. Some dispute that and say that it's an Israelite teacher who's using a Solomon-like persona to teach. But if it was Solomon, it would have been written sometime around 940, 930 BC. If it was written at a later date, scholars believe it would be post-exile. But either way, the teacher is a character in the book, and many believe that the author was different. So basically like an editor who introduced and concluded the book and then included Solomon's teachings in the center of it. And the author wants the reader to hear what the teacher has to say. Obviously, we are placing this where we are placing it in the timeline is that it was Solomon. It was much earlier in the kingdom. And that's where we're placing it in Bible Book Club. So
probably later in his reign.
Yes, later in his reign. Because it does seem like he's
Yeah.
reflecting on his life and looking back at it all. And yeah, we know from reading about his life in Kings that Solomon kind of took his wisdom for granted And he underestimated the power of sin because of how much wisdom he had, which ultimately led to his and the nation's ruin. So sin does have the power to turn us away from God, even if we don't think we're outright rejecting him. It slowly kind of erodes at our faith. But yeah, this book is meant to remind us that if we seek after the world instead of God, not only will we not gain anything valuable, we will lose life and lose what is meaningful, because God is what brings meaning to life. So even though this book seems to be pessimistic, it does actually kind of give us this hope in what we have, what does bring us meaning to life. So if you have faith in God, that is the ultimate meaning. So the original readers in Solomon's time would have been in a nation that was politically strong but spiritually weak. Under Solomon's reign, they had political alliances, economic prosperity, but largely because of all of Solomon's wives. They had a lot of idolatry. His wives that were in foreign nations and worshipped idols and other gods would then bring it into Israel. They had nationalistic pride, but at the same time, they were experiencing the negative effects of not following God. So they could be questioning, why does the righteous suffer? Why does the evil people seem to
Succeed?
prosper? Yeah. And how life isn't always predictable. Effort doesn't always equal outcome. So the main idea of this book is that life is meaningless without the fear of God. And the reason it was written was to pass on life's wisdom to the next generation, so they could avoid the mistakes of the teacher. And if the teacher is in fact Solomon, keep in mind how many mistakes that he made that modeled the sins for future generations and ultimately kept leading them astray until they were in exile, which is a big oops. Yeah.
Whoopsie daisy.
Whoopsies. Anyways, some themes.
Yeah, so some of the themes you'll see just in repeated words. So like vanity, meaninglessness, life under the sun.
Yeah.
So if you kind of follow some of those, there's this idea of death is certain for everyone.
Right.
So again, whether you're good, evil, that's the
coming
end
to
of
us all.
everyone. Yeah.
But like the end, right? Because
Right.
from dust to dust, animal
Yeah.
or beast, like
Yeah.
we need Jesus and hope for eternity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. God's sovereignty, so just his control over all aspects of life. Finding joy in the small things of life. So again, you'll see this repeated thing of, what you eat and what you drink and just the toil of your day. Like if God, or like it's a blessing if God gives you joy in those small things. The fear of God, like you said, is kind of this overarching theme throughout it, because that is what gives life meaning. And then kind of what you were saying as well, just this idea of justice of it doesn't seem fair that the evil people succeed, the righteous people, find themselves in hard times. It's not, it doesn't seem fair, but so we see that kind of theme play out as well. But yeah, those are kind of some of the things to keep in mind as you're reading through Ecclesiastes.
Well, and just quickly before we talk about Jesus, we were talking about, Aaron was mentioning at the beginning of wisdom is like there's two different, there's speculative and there's practical. So this is a lot of like the speculative of like, why does this happen in life? And I mean, honestly, we're still questioning those things to this day. Like, why are the evil prospering? Why do I go to work every day just for this? And so it's very important that we put our hope in God and to center around him. Otherwise it does seem very mundane and meaningless.
Well, and even to another, I guess, theme I didn't quite mention is like just the pursuit of pleasure, the pursuit of wisdom. Like, again, because the teacher, he says like, oh, first I pursued pleasure and didn't find meaning. Then I pursued wisdom. So it's like, whether it's physically you're pursuing something or mentally, like none of it is actually going to satisfy you, because we were meant for God to satisfy us and provide meaning for us, which again is very practical in our world that, for the last how many decades we've lent towards materialism and atheism, where it's like our world is all that there is. And it leads to hopelessness and nihilism. And it's just like, well, if this is all there is, then there is no point, or I might as well just live for myself. But it's like, no, there's something more that we can offer. So again, for our culture, even right now, there is that like, you can find it would helps you in our culture right now, because these are the questions that a lot of people are facing.
Well, and even so, the Hebrew word for vanity can translate as to vapor or smoke. So it's just like a reminder that all of those things that people seek after is like vapor. It'll go away. God is the only thing that lasts.
Yeah,
you
it's
can't
fleeting.
hold it. It's
Yeah.
fleeting. God is the only one that's not going to leave you, and He lasts for eternity. So have that eternal focus, I think, is what matters. Anyways, Jesus.
So Jesus is not mentioned directly in this book, but it kind of prepares the way for him, exposing why we need him in our life, right? Because he can fulfill all of these things that can't. So like when we're talking about the vanities of vanities, as Heidi just mentioned, it's stuff that can be fleeting, not captured, fades away. Wisdom, work, pleasure, wealth, nothing in this world will truly satisfy us. But then when we have Jesus, we have an eternal purpose and life overflowing, like our church likes to say. With wisdom, it can fall short. We can pray for it. The Bible promises we can pray for it and we can get it. But wisdom, it's still not found in ourselves, right? We have to know that it's found in Jesus. It's found in God. Also, this book is very grounded in a worldview, right? It's everything under the sun, right? Death comes to all, injustice prevails, human effort seems temporary. But Jesus offers us a kingdom that's not limited to this life under the sun, with eternal life and ultimate justice. And then the last part of the book says to fear God and keep his commandments. We know we all suck at that. But thanks to Jesus, we have salvation through grace instead of works. So this book really points to why we need him. So when you're reading the book, just have a mindset that, Ecclesiastes, it raises the question, and then Jesus, he provides the answer.
Yeah, that's good.
So if you've been marking down the key verse for each of our books, the key verse for Ecclesiastes is chapter 12, verses 13 and 14. And then if you're studying through it and you want to keep some application questions in mind, some things that you might want to think about as you read through the book would be, what does Ecclesiastes teach about work and success, wealth and pleasure? How does the author describe God's role in human life? What does Ecclesiastes teach about how we should view our future? And what do you think the teacher ultimately believes gives life meaning? And if you were paying attention, we actually mentioned it in this podcast episode. But those are just things to kind of keep in mind as you're reading through, and that will kind of lead you to answers around how can Ecclesiastes apply to my life today, and what should I do with this information, and how should it change me?
And I think just to reflect too on the things that we are trying to grasp on and hold
Fill
on
that
to
void,
as a pursuit of that. I think that if it can be taken away, at the end of our life, it's not going to matter.
Right.
I think so everyone has those things. It's like, oh, I just need to get married and then I'll be happy. I just need to have a kid and then I'll be happy. I just need to get that promotion.
I just need this success or this wealth
in my savings account, whatever it is. And it's like, you get to that point. I mean, there's so many stories of celebrities or wealthy people getting there. And it's just like, well, now what?
Yeah.
Like, right. And that's when they get depressed, or like they find Jesus too, in that.
Well, how many times do you think, if I just had this one thing, then that's when I would be happy? And then you look at the other people that have that one thing,
and they're still on
they're
the
going,
next
why does
thing.
that thing?
Yeah.
And then they're looking at people that have that thing, and those people are still thinking. So it never ends because they're all looking to something incorrect.
And it's not to say that you can't have goals and you can't pursue but just to know that your identity, your value, and your happiness does not lie in
your
those
purpose.
things. Your purpose is not in that.
It's like if those things don't happen, you still have full purpose.
If all of
in
that
God.
is taken away today, like what,
And God
what does that
wants you
leave
to enjoy those things.
Yes.
I mean, the book also says
Right.
like enjoy, like eat, drink, be happy, right? Like
There's a time for everything.
Yeah, it's like if you're married, enjoy your husband. If you have kids, enjoy your kids.
Yeah.
Enjoy your job.
Yeah.
Like, but don't do it with the intention that it's what's fulfilling you.
and that's who you are at the core.
Yeah, because if it's taken away,
Because they are gifts from God. Like all those, everything in this
Everything
world,
good
like,
is a gift
is from God.
Like
so,
dancing.
like that.
Ecclesiastes is also in Footloose. Who's back in my world recently. I mean, since being a mom, I don't get to watch my favorite 80s movies anymore. But Psalms, Samuel, and Ecclesiastes, because guess what? There's a time for dancing.
Oh.
In my world, it's,
I feel like that would have been like the perfect intro to you breaking into a dance. There's a time for dancing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just because we're sitting, that's the only reason I'm not. I had a call.
There's also a
I
time
need
for
to
not
watch this
dancing.
Footloose
No, not for me.
movie.
I had a colleague,
Not for me, there's always a
he
time for
was
dancing.
staring at me, and as I was like, hey, like, what's up? It's like, I was just watching you walk, and every time you move, it's like there's music playing, and nobody else can hear it. I'm like, yeah, that pretty much sums up my life. Pretty accurate.
I remember
the voices.
the first time I think you met like my husband in person at church, and afterwards he's like, "Man, she just bounced up to me."
You do bounce your way through church. That's so true.
But yes, podcasting is a time for sitting.
For now.
For now.
Yeah. All right.
Just get like one of those mics that
That's a Britney Spears mic.
On stage. We'll have a live podcast
Yeah.
one day.
One day. All right.
All right,
Well,
well-
enjoy Ecclesiastes.
Don't get too depressed.
Bye.